everybody, my name's Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition Emotion. I'm so happy, I'm so excited, I'm so grateful to have you here for our second workshop. I am pumped for you to experience our guest speaker later on this evening. But before we get started, I want to touch up on a couple of quick points. So you are starting your mentor relationship. That is awesome. Hopefully you've had your first conversation. I'd love to learn about it. Post maybe some of the key talking points that you've had for your first meeting in the comment section. Would love to learn about how that first meeting has gone. But yeah, this workshop's all about how to network in a genuine way and really make the most out of it. This workshop should be about an hour long. And if you've got any questions during this workshop, please post them in the comments section. As a reminder, I'm going to ask you 3 questions during the duration of this workshop. Once we have asked those questions, I'll expect you to answer them. That's how you get credit for participating and being here at the workshops. I'm really excited for you to experience our guest speaker tonight. I'm really excited to dive into this. Now, this is what's really key. I mean, genuine networking is such a pivotal component to building rapport, to getting job offers, to getting promotions. Really, if you can hone this skill, if you can hone this ability, you will be set professionally, because ultimately, at the end of the day, your hard skills, that being your ability to crunch numbers, to do some form of engineering, to do some form of science, like all those things are pretty good. They're very easy to measure. So it's very clear whether or not you are better or worse than somebody on a hard skill. But your soft skills are much more difficult to measure. But those soft skills are really what's going to set you apart. I mean, as they say, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And this is the workshop about how you can know more people and have a stronger bond with them, because then it goes to your reputation. Because if you have a reputation for treating people like garbage, you're not going to have a great reputation. People are going to want to help connect you with other people. If you come in with low energy, if you come in with a bad state, if you come in talking trash about other people, you're not going to put yourself in a good position. And so I want to be very clear. When it comes to networking, when it comes to building a relationship, it is not all about the transaction. If you're coming into a networking situation, you're thinking to yourself, what is in it for me? You are not going to have a positive outcome. I promise you on that. I really want to be clear. It's not all about landing the job or the internship. Sometimes it's about building the relationship and then playing the long game, because ultimately that may turn into an opportunity because they built a rapport with you. But if you burn them, or if you make them feel like you are using them to get to a location that you would like to be, they can smell that on you. They can smell it from a mile away. And that is not great. As they say, desperation reeks. You do not want to be desperate. You don't want to be perceived as someone that's a user or a taker. You want to be a giver. You want to be someone who gives energy to relationships. The first place to start is being genuine with how you talk to people and how you build rapport with people. Now, this is something we talked about last time, but it is so important, and that is the 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. As we've said before, your state is most important. So physically, how are you? Physically, what is going on with your world? Physically, I don't care what is happening. If you recently broke up with your significant other, if your dog just died, if you got some bad news, I don't care what's going on. If you get up, if you shake it out, if you let it loose, you will get yourself into a positive state. So I want to challenge you to do that right now. I want you to get up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah, just let it out, let it loose, let it go. Because what you're doing is you're releasing blood to your brain. You're releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself into a state conducive for retaining information. If you're just sitting there on a couch or in a chair in a slumped over position, your likelihood of retaining any of the information we talk about tonight is severely diminished. But if you come in standing up, moving around, getting your blood flowing, you are much more likely to retain this information. Have you ever found it difficult in a classroom setting to remember what your professor says if you've been sitting for 3 hours? That's why 3-hour lectures really struggle to work. They're not very effective because people are not moving around. Your brain needs blood to retain information. So get up, get moving, get out, get loose. Now, the second key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself for why you will or will not be successful? I promise you right now, you will achieve up to the goals that you set for yourself in life and no higher. So you might as well shoot for the stars and land on the moon than shoot for the moon and end up in nowhere. Because if you are not focused about where you want to be, or really having a big, hairy, crazy, audacious goal for yourself, what are you doing? Like, are you just saying to yourself, like, I'm cool with winding up short, with, settling down and just settling for everything in my life? If that's the case, this program's not for you. I can tell you that right now. This program's not for you if you're trying to settle. But if you're someone that wants to go for it, if you want to go big, if you want to go out there for the opportunities that you want to see in your life, this program is absolutely for you. Let this program be a springboard. Let your mentor be a Sherpa that's guiding you up this mountain of life and success and help you get to where you want to be. This is someone who wants to guide you, that wants to help you. They wouldn't have signed up for this program if they weren't interested in seeing you succeed. So I want to be very clear with you. What is the story for why you will be successful? Understand that, hone it, be prepared. In fact, I would challenge you to write this down. Write it on a piece of paper. It's more likely to stick in your mind if you write it on a piece of paper of where you want to be. Stick it up on your wall. Stick it up on your desk. Stick it up on your dresser. Stick it up on your mirror. Something that's going to remind you of where you want to be in 1 month, 3 months, 1 year from now. That will help you set the target of where you want to go. Because if you don't set these goals, you're going to be on a path that's got really no clear outcome of where you want to go. So the last part is your strategy. What are you going to do to set yourself apart? Now, when it comes to strategies, I'm a big believer in routines. When I say routines, I mean literally getting into a daily habit that you can practice regularly so then you can be better at a skill. We think about habits sometimes in a negative light because we think about people just being addicted to bad actions, but I believe that habits can also be attributed in a positive light as well. What is a positive habit you can get into to help you build more genuine relationships? I believe one thing you can do is to be intentional about having an informational interview every single week with a new person, with a new professional in your field. You can leverage LinkedIn. You could go to a professor's office hours. You could talk to a friend of yours whose parent works in the field that you're interested in working towards, or a family friend that you know works in the field that you're interested in working towards. If you set up one informational interview every single week, and by an informational interview, I want to be very clear. This is a conversation. This isn't an interview. You're not trying to get a job from this person. You're just trying to get knowledge about what this work is like. Set up one of those a week. I can promise you they're going to start making introductions for you. They're going to start helping you get to where you want to be. By the way, if your goals change over time, that's okay. That's totally okay. You can share with them how your goals have changed, and they're going to want to keep helping you over time. I'll give you a perfect example of this. As an entrepreneur, I set goals all the time. I have a board of mentors. I literally have about 50 to 100 mentors that I send once every 3 months an update of what's going on with the business. Here's the thing though, I've pivoted this business many, many times. Now, initially when I first got started, I was thinking to myself like, oh, well, they're my mentors. Like, if I tell them that I've pivoted, will they think I'm a total failure? Will they not want to help me anymore? What I found is that is absolutely not the case. They're always there to support me. Mentors that have been with me for 5+ years still give me guidance, still help make introductions, still help me out and support me as my mission has grown, as my goals have grown. That is the nature of mentoring relationships. That is the nature of relationships in general. You should keep your network up to date with what is going on in your world because they will want to see you succeed. But the key is that you ask them for something specific. When I meet with my mentors or when I send them an email, I ask for something very, very specific. I don't say, hey, if you know anybody in XYZ space, if you could introduce me, would love that. Why? Because it's not at the top of their mind. What I'll do is I'll physically go onto their LinkedIn profile, look at who they're connected with and say, hey, I noticed that you're connected with Jane Doe, John Doe, Shelby Doe, and Jenny Doe. I know that you may not be connected with all 4 of those people, but if you are connected with one of them, would you mind introducing me? Here's an email template that you could copy and paste to introduce me. Now I've made it extremely specific and easy for them to take an action step to help me out. And that is how you can continue to grow your relationships, your network, and build rapport with people. And just keep them in the loop of what's going on in your world. So I just want to be very clear. It's about building genuine relationships. And it's about when you're building those genuine relationships and then you're asking them for introductions or connecting with more people through those relationships, being very specific and making it as easy as possible for them to help you out. I really want to stress this. It's so important. Genuine networking. If you can take anything from this whole program, if it's genuine networking, and by genuine networking, I mean really listening, taking an active and keen interest in who you are speaking with, you are going to be set. You're going to be in a great position. Because at the end of the day, it's not your elevator pitch. It's not going to be anything about you that makes someone interested in you. It's going to be about your ability to listen to them. In fact, I can tell you multiple times where I didn't say a word in a conversation. I just nodded my head yes and asked questions about things that somebody else has said. And at the end of the conversation, whether that be 30 minutes or 60 minutes long, they said, man, Garrett, you are such a great conversationalist. Or, gosh, I feel like I just had such a great conversation with you. And the funniest thing about it is I didn't actually say a word. The point is this: people love to talk about themselves Why? Because people are really interested in things that they're interested in. People wouldn't choose to spend the time that they have on this earth in the way that they did unless they thought it was the most optimum way of spending their time. Therefore, things that interest them, things that they choose to spend their time on, are things that interest them and ultimately make you interesting to them because you've taken an interest in those actions and activities. I hope that makes sense. If you want to rewatch that, take that back 30 seconds because I think it's really important. People ultimately, at the end of the day, people care about themselves. People care about things that they are interested in because they've chosen to spend the time that they have on those tasks. So with that said, I'm excited to jump in to our guest speaker this evening. Really, the whole point of this workshop is about genuine networking. If you've got any questions for myself or for our guest speaker, please post them in the comments section. By the way, if you have not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. I'll add you to our LinkedIn group where we discuss different topics and you can add different topics, ask any questions, and expand us to our entire Ambition in Motion network. Connect with me. I'll add you to the group. But yeah, I'm so excited to get started. Let's jump into our guest speaker this evening. Hey everybody, I'm so excited for our workshop this evening. We're here to talk about how to network in a genuine way and how to build genuine relationships, especially in this crazy COVID period that we're in right now. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of interesting ways to go about building deep, genuine relationships, but we're bringing it to you from the perspective of government relations. We've got an excellent guest speaker with us tonight. Her name is Mio Munoz, and Mio has worked in government for over 20 years and has accomplished some incredible achievements like testifying to help create a new Latino seat in the 13th Congressional District, was a member of President Obama's National Latino Leadership Council, and is the president and founder of Client Connect Group, a government and community relations consulting firm. Mio, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Gary. I'm so glad to be with you. Thank you for inviting me. I really am excited about being able to connect as we do in Client Connect Group.
That's awesome. And you know what's interesting? So we're here to talk about how to network in a genuine way. And I think for a lot of college students, even if you're not necessarily interested in pursuing a career in government, I think the concept of networking can be potentially frightening. I mean, I think a lot of students think about networking, they think, oh geez, it's some big chore I have to do so that I can land my next job. They don't necessarily see it for the opportunity that it can be. And I would imagine that in government of all places, you can really show the true testament of what it means to connect with somebody else and build a truly deep, strong bond. So Mio, could you just share with me a little bit of your story and how you got to where you're at? I know we gave a brief intro, but I'd love to hear it from your words itself.
Well, to begin with, I was never in, I would say, government politics. My background was in sociology, and I was genuinely interested in helping others, and I started being a social worker. And I felt like there were other people pulling the strings for the most part, and I needed to connect with them if I really wanted to make a difference in my community. And I felt that there were so many communities that were being marginalized. So one of the things that I did was that I would actually go to town hall meetings where a lot of these elected officials would normally bring their teams to meet with the community. And that's how I started. It was more about, well, actually me being an advocate, and that desire to want to make a difference that made me feel that this was just the right direction to go in. And you have to feel that this is part of what you're doing, is once you set a goal, just moving forward and full speed ahead.
Love that story. That's really fascinating. I think that takes a different turn on the way careers are perceived. I think from a lot of college students, I think we think like, oh, we get our degree in accounting or sociology or psychology and we pursue this path, and they think it's very linear. I think you kind of touched on this, but it almost shows the true point of how up and down a career can be, and ultimately if you're passionate about seeing and achieving a certain outcome, that almost a career can unfold for you. It just depends on the lens that you look at it. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And that opportunity to just be yourself, be curious, and understand that, at least in my case, when it comes to government, it's such a broad and very open field where you could be an accountant and still be able to be in a position to change policy and understanding what are those things that you feel you want to make a difference in. It could be healthcare. It could be business in terms of helping mid-sized small businesses become these, large corporations. It's an exciting opportunity for me to just share with everyone just how you can take that very same passion, that desire, in whatever field your concentration is, and how you can bring that into the civic world.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've never brought on a guest in government relations before, anything that had to do with government. I'd be curious, how does that process even work? How does that start? How do you get involved in working for a government or to make an impact? How does that work? How did you kind of stumble upon this?
Well, I learned that a leader is only as good as their advisors. Let's start with that. Um, an advisor is someone which is the role that I play, and which is the role that I hope many of you will look into playing that advisory call. We're actually called liaisons. We are the bridge. We are the ones that are responsible for having a pulse on the community, having the ear of the community. And I'm just going to share a little secret. Most elected officials, they just want to know what's the solution. Don't just bring me the problem, bring me the solution. And we are pretty much the Navy SEALs. We go out there, we connect with the communities that are being impacted or have been impacted by some legislation, some regulation, something that's not allowing the governmental community to service in the most effective way. So one of the things that you may want to look into is being that advisor, being at the table, and being that voice.
I think that this is something that a lot of students go through, this fear of being an imposter, this imposter syndrome of like, how could I possibly come up with a solution for a very complex problem? How could this legislator, how could this person in government actually hear my voice and actually run with it? What has your experience been with this and overcoming that fear, that imposter syndrome fear? Because I think, by the way, this feeling of imposter syndrome can apply beyond just in government work. It can go to networking and building a relationship with a higher level professional or executive that you've never met with before, and you think to yourself, why would they ever want to meet with me? How do you overcome that? How do you put yourself in the mindset that I'm coming and I'm bringing value?
Well, elected officials are always looking for that opportunity to feel that they're coming in to save the day. It's just the nature of the beast. And one of the things that you want to do when you're in an environment, it could just be a networking. I will go to a couple of conferences during the year. It could be the Black, Puerto Rican, and Latino legislative conference that usually happens every year in Albany. It could be a conference in Washington. When you are in a career like even healthcare, again, it could be something like business and you're concerned about some kind of IRS matter. What you do is that you have to feel safe, that level of safety. It first starts with being comfortable with yourself. You have to be comfortable with yourself. You have to feel that there is, what's the worst that can happen? That they can say no? Well, if they don't pick up that, I would say on that matter and take the steps that you felt they should have taken, then maybe you just need to work on it a little bit more. And what I mean by work on it is by connecting with those individuals that are connected to that, I keep calling it the 6 degrees of separation. In this case, we have to have like, that 6 feet from each other. There's always that one person that has the ear of that stakeholder. And I look at it in terms of stakeholders. So I just don't want to concentrate just on the elected official. A stakeholder could be an official or an unofficial leader. In this case, it could be someone that has an organization, a non-for-profit, and that non-for-profit has been effective and has been able to successfully make an impact with that particular legislator. It's about doing your research. When you do your research, you feel safe in terms of what it is that you're proposing. When you do your research in terms of, okay, I understand this has worked in the past, maybe in another state. So that way you're feeling safe, and then the other person is feeling safe that, hey, this may not be such a difficult task. It's not a precedence. It's not something new. It's something that has worked. And now you feel comfortable because you've done your research, you know it works. And now you want to just share something with that stakeholder that can make them become an even stronger advocate, or, you know, make an even stronger impact within that industry. Everyone is looking to make an impact, and they're no different.
That's so interesting. So I think the big point that you're bringing out here is all about, we've heard the saying, it's about who you know, not actually what you know. I can personally directly apply that to something that actually happened to me earlier today. I met with a venture capitalist, and what was fascinating was this new person who I've hired onto my team. She was friends with this. And what's fascinating is that because of her connection and bringing in this venture capitalist to this meeting, and the fact that I was connected with her, he immediately saw a ton of value in this. He was essentially explaining how his number one value when investing is team. And he was saying, hey, if you got Tori on your team, you know what, shoot, I'm interested, because this is somebody that I believe in, and I believe in you by just being connected with her. So the point is that whether we're talking about our mentor relationships, as the students are all going through this mentor program right now, or any other relationships that we can leverage, it's okay to ask for introductions. It's okay to ask for help, because that can help us get our voice across. So to the original question I asked was, how can we overcome that fear? It's sometimes doing your research. Well, one, it's absolutely doing your research, so being confident with the solution you come up with. But two, getting into the ear of people who can make a difference and a change. You don't just be a wallflower and be frustrated when your solution isn't taken. It's going to the people who can actually make a difference and implement things. And they will want to help you solve this because you've done your research. So with all that said, getting into this point where I know people and I've got these deep bonds is not an easy process. What does genuine networking mean to you? When I say genuine networking, I mean networking and building relationships with somebody that is deep. It's deeper than the, hey, can you get me a job, or hey, can you get me an internship? It dives into the, I want to be connected with you and stay connected with you for a while. How do you go about, what does that mean to you, and how do you go about doing that?
Well, again, you have to be genuine in terms of what you're also willing to offer and what you're able to bring to the table. It is a two-way street. And one of the things that I emphasize the most to a lot of our clients is not just about the now or the later. It's about the now and the later. You're actually cultivating a relationship, and it has to be sustainable. If you're just looking for a quick turnaround of, okay, well, I'm just going to meet with this person because this is what I want right now, then you really need to rethink your relationship, because you may get what you want now, but there's always that opportunity to get so much more if you're willing to also allow yourself to bring something to to the table, where the person can then say, wow, this person is genuine, and it is a two-way street. You're able to understand what it is that this person may or may not need, and when that person does allow themselves feel safe enough to just share with you, hey, this is something that I've been thinking about, then you have something to say, well, this is how I know someone, or this is something that has worked for me before, and just offer that opportunity to also be able to help them in their efforts and their goal, because it has to come together, it has to connect, and it can only connect with a give and take. And that's with most relationship, and it certainly is the case when it comes to networking with civic leaders, and also just stakeholders within your prospective industry.
That is awesome. I think that big nugget that I took from that was, don't think about what I'm going to get out of this person. Don't think that networking is all about me, take, because ultimately if you do that, you're going to build up, one, a bad reputation, and two, you're not going to set yourself up for success. So as a student, I would imagine that focusing on what you can offer or bring to the table, or just sometimes it's just lending an open ear. So I'd love to take a moment to ask the students a question watching this. What is something that you believe you bring to the table that you believe that you could give to another professional or to another person, that ultimately can help convey that you are willing to give value? It could be just the ability to listen and the ability to apply new things that you're learning. I mean, so often people just want to feel like if they're giving advice, that their advice is actually being heeded. And as a student, that's something you can provide. So take a moment, write in the comment section, what is something you could give to another professional? Because I think that's something that can help us put ourselves in the right mind frame when it comes to justifying, hey, I'm reaching out to this person, I'm wanting to build this relationship with this person. This is what I can bring to the table. And I think that's something that's pretty critical. But I'd love to take that into application, Mio. Could you tell me the story about how your network influenced your career? Like, who in your network has mentored you? Who has helped you open doors to opportunities? How did you get to where you're at? Who are those people that helped you out? I'd love to, if you could say the people and specifically the story around how they helped you. I'd love to learn a story or two from you.
Naturally, I realize I'm a fixer, someone who likes to fix things. So I would actually just reflect back in even my high school years. I will take it back as far as my high school years, where I met a wonderful mentor by the name of Martha Graham, not the dancer. She was an executive in Chase. At that time, it was chemical. So I'm going to date myself a little bit here. And Martha was a top executive looking at finances and investment. And here she was looking at me in terms of someone that she could make an investment, and that she believed that even though my career path was one of being a social worker, I went to my mentor and I continued to stay in contact with her. And I said, I really enjoy social work and I really enjoy what I do in terms of helping people make a difference. But I really feel there's so much more out there. And she was able to introduce me at the time to Ruth Messenger, who was the bar president and a good friend of her, and also a former social worker. So I got that I like to fix things from my mentor, who was always connecting and fixing things in a way that it was mutually beneficial. And again, it's all about that mutual benefit. She saw that, hey, Ruth Messenger was someone that was a social worker who then became a borough president. This may be a good connection for Mio. And that's how she was able to connect me to the person who actually gave me my first opportunity in government. And then from there, it just continued to grow. When she was no longer in office, then there, of course, I had the opportunity to ask myself, do I want to stay with the person that's now going to take on her role, which was at the time Virginia Fields. And Virginia Fields, ironically, was also a former social worker. And one of the things that you learn even in that field of training is that you have to listen carefully, because the person that's having the difficult situation naturally knows what they need in order to fix that situation. And if you just listen closely enough, they will let you know. I always look at the example of a doctor and a patient, where if the patient doesn't tell the doctor, hey, my head hurts, the doctor is going to spend all this money doing all these battery of tests. And then, of course, once you understand what the needs are, you're then able to do an assessment of what opportunities are there, sort of like what we're trained in, the whole SWOT analysis. And then, of course, being able to follow through, being a strategic thinker, being able to follow through, and being able to just say to my mentor right now, who is going to be listening, thank you, Martha, for making that huge investment, and also allowing me to want to also make a difference in the life of others, in sharing my experience and encouraging others that this is what it takes. It takes a community, and I certainly hope that you will work with me to grow our community. And of course, Gary, you're part of that familia.
Yeah, I love that story. I think what I really loved about it is, sometimes mentors see something in you that you may not necessarily see in yourself. And I think I'm piecing some of the story pieces together. So at the beginning, you were saying you studied sociology, and then you had a mentor that connected you with a social worker. And I think for you, you had saw, oh, I'm a sociology major, perhaps I could pursue a career in social work. Perhaps I would imagine if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't have even considered government. But it wasn't until you connected with Martha and she was said, hey, I went from being a social worker into being the leader of the bar association, that ultimately opened your eyes to how you could get involved and be a part of government. And I think that's so critical in so many other people's stories, especially for students. We close ourselves off from potential career paths because we don't think that's stereotypically what we should be doing based on what people stereotypically with our degree does. But as we were talking about before, careers are not linear. They're up and down. They're all around. So what I really loved about that story is how somebody saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself that helped you transition and lead a career that you maybe didn't even envision when you first got out of college.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So Mio, were you always incredible at networking, or was this something that you had to practice and become better at over time? How did you build your networking skills?
Again, it was being around the people, the places, and the things. It's about people, places, and things. Being able to say, well, these are individuals who I remember at one time I was looking at a former colleague of mine. His name is Giovanni Puello. And he had pretty much worked with just about every single elected official was out there, from mayors to borough presidents. And I just watched them. Sometimes you just have to be still and just watch, observe the environment, and see how people interact within that environment, so that when you're you have the opportunity to meet the people, then you understand what are the rules of engagement, because it's about also understanding the rules of engagement. Because at the end of the day, your net worth is really about your network. And in order to grow that network, you have to be in the right place, doing the right things at the right time. And it's about being able to position yourself. And in doing that, you have to be able to identify individuals that you want to emulate, and that you feel are doing such a great job in what you're doing. And this is one way that I would just encourage most beginners that are interested in networking and doing it effectively, is about being able to be in the right place at the right time, being able to be observant and understand the rules of engagement. Etiquette is something that I would encourage everyone to pursue and take definitely, even if it's just a quick workshop.
That's awesome. And I'm going to want to dive deeper into etiquette because I think there's a lot of value in that conversation. But before I do, I want to ask the students a question real quick. What is something that you would like to start applying today to improve your networking abilities and skills? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about anything maybe Mio shared, or anything that you've learned over the course of this mentor program or through your mentor that you would love to start applying in your life to improve your ability to build your network. Because as Mio said, your network is your net worth. And I think that's such a great statement, such a great quote from Mio right there. But let's talk about etiquette for a second. I think there's a lot of factors that go into etiquette, including how you treat somebody via email, including your body language when you're meeting with them, whether it be virtually on a Zoom call or in person, your vocal intonation. I think there's a lot there. I know that I have personally seen students misspell my name, and harnessing my Dale Carnegie, it makes me want to pull my hair out, because your name is the most important word in the world to you. And if somebody else messes up your name, it's such a tarnish on you. It makes you feel not so great. And so, and sometimes students take that a little bit lightly. But what are some other etiquette things that you feel that students could do to improve their networking skills and abilities, so they can network in a more genuine way and make a really strong impression?
Well, one of the things that I've seen happen quite often is that someone wants to get to a stakeholder, and they don't allow that stakeholder to finish their conversation with whoever they're meeting with that's in front of them at the time. And they're so quick to want to inject themselves, as opposed to letting it flow naturally and organically, and allowing yourself to understand that, again, it's not about you. Yes, you're important, but the most important thing that you need to understand is Respect the other individual when they're speaking, listen to them, be able to learn how to pronounce their name correctly, and be formal, as in the sense that don't just be so quick to be informal. Like I tell people, most of the time I refer to individuals, and I remember my boss, which was Congressman Rangel. He even said to me, he said, you know, you can call me Charlie. And then at that point, I was, up until then, it was Congressman or Mr. Rangel. Always think about how hard that person worked to achieve that title. And don't be so quick to just want to be so personal that you really break one of those very important rules, which is to show respect for that person's hard work and what it took for them to achieve that title, and to let them know that you appreciate their hard work, and this is the way that you want to approach them, from that standpoint of wait until the relationship, which it has to be something organic, it's natural, before you start pushing towards that, hey, let's be on a first name basis.
That's a great story. I've got a story on that. Immediately makes me think of it. One of my first jobs, I was working as a server at a restaurant, and the general manager of the restaurant, his name is Tony. I one time referred to him as Tone, just Tone, like we were casual. And that was before I'd really learned anything. I was 18 years old. I was very young, and I made a huge mistake because he didn't like going. He didn't go by. He went just by Tony, and that was it. And fortunately, I had a boss that sat me down and was like, hey, so he does not go by shortened nicknames. Don't do that. And yeah, it was great to have that kind of set aside. Definitely left an impression in my mind because, I mean, I can totally relate to a lot of students wanting to build a more casual relationship. The logic in my mind was, well, if I can build a more casual relationship, maybe this person will like me more because we're more friendly. But that's not necessarily how it always works, and it's always better to ask and wait for permission first and err on the side of being more formal than less before diving into an informal way of referring to somebody. So I touched a little bit about body language. How does body language impact networking and your ability to build relationships with other people?
Absolutely no slouching. People pick up on energy. Energy is so important. Even if you're having a very difficult day and you're tired, never let them see you look tired. And when you're slouching, you look tired. Carry yourself with your head up high and really own that space that is yours. And let people know that you're someone that is confident, and make sure that when you walk into a room, you're able to walk in there with confidence. And don't be so quick to try to hold on to the wall. I call that people that like to just, when they go into a room, they quickly run to a corner like corners. No, that is just not the way to make make that great impression, which you only have that one opportunity when you walk into the room, in terms of how you have that energy and how you feel comfortable in your space, and what you can then say to others by not even verbally having to say anything, just them being able to pick up on that energy. Be positive, enjoy what you do, because people will pick up on that.
It's interesting. People like those who are like them. And if you want to be around positive, happy, optimistic people, you've got to convey positive, happy, and optimistic energy when you meet with somebody. And that, I think, is so true, because if you want people to reciprocate that type of feeling or that type of emotion, you've got to be able to give it yourself. So I think that makes a ton of sense to me. A couple final points I'd love to touch on. One, I think you've done an incredible job of navigating introduction, leveraging one mentor to introduce you to another mentor. I think that is something all of the students watching this can absolutely take home with them, because I think that's so valuable and so critical. How can students navigate those introductions? Did you ask your mentors to make the introduction for you? Did they make it on their own? How did they know to introduce you to the right people? How did you go about navigating that process?
Well, again, going back to not only my relationship with Martha, but also connecting with other colleagues. You just never know who knows who. And I have another experience I want to share with you. You could be in a wedding, you could be in a family event, and you just don't know who within that family event knows someone that knows someone. So the other point that I want to make is that yes, there is an opportunity there to network within the professional environment, but also when you go to other environments, it could be with friends, and being able to just share with them some ideas that did come to mind, things that you may be interested in working on. And that's my way of saying it's like fishing. You're just throwing that rod out there, and you just never know who's going to be the one to clamp on it. And now you have an opportunity to wheel it in. And again, this is about you have to practice of course your elevator pitch. And the most important thing is that you could pretty much be in a position where you're even in shopping at a grocery store, and you're having a conversation, and someone may overhear that conversation. You just never know. One of the things that just recently happened was that I was able to advocate or help certain workers that were having a difficult time in terms of what they were going to do. The store was about to close down, and I knew that these workers were going to lose their jobs. But they did not know that even though I was just naturally shopping at that store, that I happened to know the local senator by being able to pick up that phone and speak directly to that senator or that assembly member or even that council member, and that I could then identify ways to help them navigate those bureaucratic situations that most people feel like, oh my gosh, is that red tape? I can't get through. So again, it's about being able to have conversations, just have a natural conversation, and be able to identify your needs. And as you're speaking to people, you just also have to understand that you just never know. You could be in a social setting, but you can also be in a professional setting. So my message to everyone is, networking happens everywhere.
And are people generally helpful?
Absolutely. I would say people are generally helpful. And again, going back to what you said about that mentor or that employer pulling you to the side, I just want to just share with you something in terms of attire. I remember I had just started in the Manhattan Borough President's office, and I saw that, hey, people dress a certain way, and these are things you want to pick up on. You said, remember what I said earlier? Be able to observe, be observant. And I remember what Elaine said. She was incredibly helpful. She says, Neil, if you have a blazer with only one button, you do not need to close that button. It just does not look very nice. And I found that to be very helpful. And she saw that I want to be more involved in terms of, the public and interacting more with the media. And she had this skill where she was the person that we would look towards in terms of our public relations, our marketing, and she was very helpful. So when people see that you're trying, they will naturally want to help you also succeed, because if they help you succeed, they just never know what position you're going to land, and then you can always pay it forward. So
That's
I
it.
would say for the most part, yes.
That's so powerful. That story was a great exemplification of exactly, are people generally helpful? See, I think a lot of people could have heard that story and thought to themselves, well, that person was mean or critical or rude. Like, why would they even say that? But the reason why they'd say that, if they didn't care, they would say nothing. They only say that if they care. Sometimes it's easy to feel offended when someone's being harsh on you or giving you criticism, but they don't take the time to waste their breath if they didn't care about the outcome of what you can achieve. And I think you do a great job of applying that. So I'd love to take the time to ask a final question to the students is, when is the time that you received advice that potentially was harsh, it was impactful, it wasn't cookie coated or sugar coated, it was the real deal, but ultimately came from somebody that you respected and you applied it and you were able to grow as a person for it? Tell us about a time that happened. Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. When was the time that someone gave you great advice, but it wasn't the easiest to hear at the time? Post in the comment section. So Mio, I'd love to finish with just any final tips for students as they pursue these genuine networking relationships. Are there any tips you've got on engaging questions that they can ask to build deeper bonds with not only their mentor, but other professionals they're interested in networking with?
Well, people, again, want to be helpful. And when they feel comfortable sharing their story, you may even just step to, feel comfortable stepping up to them and just saying, hey, listen, I'm actually interested, like I did with Martha. You identify a mentor, someone who is going to pretty much grab you by the hand and help you reach that goal. And having a mentor is very important. One of the things that I encourage everyone is identify someone who you feel you look up to and just ask them if they would be willing to mentor you, because this is a career that you feel very strongly about, very passionate about, and people will naturally want to help. They identify with those individuals that want to make a difference. And as long as you're in that position where you feel that desire to want to make a difference, I assure you, at some point, someone will lend that support, but you have to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. That is my final, I would say, suggestion in terms of wrapping up our conversation. Just feel comfortable in knowing that people naturally are not out there trying to bring you down. Let them know that, hey, I am someone who has done already X, Y, and Z, because again, you have to show what you're bringing to the table. You just introduce yourself. I'm just, in my case, I'm Mio. I've done all this great work, and I just feel like I just want to be able to do more. And then at that point, you will notice that people's attitude change in terms of, okay, this person is willing to be vulnerable. And at that point, you will see how the conversation will, you will gauge if they will tell you, yes, I happen to know someone that I think can be helpful. But don't be afraid to put yourself out there. What's the worst that can happen? That they can say no. The only thing that doesn't happen are those things you just don't give yourself an opportunity to explore. So be inquisitive, be willing to explore, and enjoy the journey. Don't just focus on the destination.
Great tips, Mio. That's awesome. Final question. How can our audience learn more about you? How can they connect with you? Can they connect with you on LinkedIn? They've all got LinkedIn accounts. How can our audience learn more about you?
Absolutely. Please connect with me via LinkedIn. That's how Garrett and I were able to connect. LinkedIn is, I check my LinkedIn account quite often. I've identified that as my main source of social networking. And also Client Connect Group. We are in a position right now where we're growing our network. And I would just say, if you're interested in learning more about civic matters, feel comfortable just reaching out to me via LinkedIn, and also reach out to Garrett. Garrett knows where to find me. City, state, and federal matters. I love working with you.
That's awesome. Mio, this has been great. This has been a fantastic workshop tonight. I appreciate you being here. Students, thank you all for being here. I'm excited for you to see how I'm excited for you to experience your next mentor conversation. I'm excited to see how that next mentor conversation goes. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night, everybody.